Welcome to Digging for Wisdom. It's another week, it's another episode, it's another day to see my main man, Professor Diggs, who's just picking like he's always picking, always up at the top 1%er. You know how he is. He can't be wrong on any of these picks. But we're going to look and see where we were wrong at some point during this podcast. I'm the Wizord. I just told you who he is. We're sitting here smack dab in the middle of week 6. The district we like to call District of Doom. All those teams are off. They're chilling. So we won't have any 11-6A talk with those teams, at least game talk. But we will talk about some things that we saw last week. Diggsy, talk to me about what you thought about week 5 and maybe some issues we have around here.
Let's talk about 11-6A. We're just going to make up games. We've got,
all right.
or let's have some games where you want to redo. I bet Mesquite Horn wants a redo after Mesquite this past week, and I bet Skyline would like a redo against Cedar Hill, and I bet Cedar Hill would like a redo against Lancaster. But guess what? No redos in football. No crying in baseball, and no redos in football. Sorry, gentlemen. But week 5 was a pretty consequential week. I think we have a lot of insight into how some of these district races are going to go. But when you figure it out, I think you're going to find out that the teams we thought were at the top of the heap are going to stay at the top of the heap. And Ward, I'm kind of curious if you think that any major surprises for you, because for the most part there are a couple of teams, and we'll talk about them, that have really come out of nowhere and have stated themselves, but I think it's still kind of the same old in many ways.
Well, it does seem like the same old. And that's why when you mentioned surprises, I was going to take it down to like a mid-level. Some of these big teams that we thought they're going to be big dogs, they have turned out to be big dogs. We didn't really know what Waxahachie was going to bring to the table. They've proven they've brought something to the table, but right now they're still sitting there. They still got work to do to make the postseason. But I was going to say, to me, Berkner's been kind of at a middle level. They've been kind of a disappointment to me. They haven't done what I thought they were going to do. And looking at everybody reads the dump, religiously, and I read it too at like 3 a.m, as I always do when I'm done with these shows. And I don't even think you had them in the playoffs as of now, and that's not what earlier this year we thought they were going to be a number 1 team in 7-6A, or at least fight for number 1, and now they're fighting for number 4. So that was kind of a disappointment. It had to be a real disappointment to have their old player Damian Crow win the game for Richardson on that faked Philly special. They couldn't get the quarterback open, but he still found a way into the end zone. I think they've been a little bit down for me. What else do you see in your report cards here?
I mean, ultimately, and not only did Richardson Berkner lose last week, but only getting 60 yards. I mean, that was just, those are those kind of games where you're just like, what is going on here? Like, where is our team? Who's going to step up? Somebody get me 100. It's kind of like our fantasy report card, too. It's like, somebody get me some yards here and there. But that's a story for a later hour. But a couple of the teams that I think that I consider surprises. First of all, I think statewide, Arlington Seguin has really asserted themselves as a team to keep an eye on, and could potentially make some noise. I mean, right now, the way Arlington Seguin is playing, the way they beat teams, I mean, they can win that region.
Can they win the region? Okay, I was going to say, can they win that district? You're talking about region.
If they can win the district, they can win the region.
Right. But can they win the district? That's the question.
Yeah, and I mean, right now Argyle has had a couple of head scratchers. I mean, they didn't dominate Colleyville Heritage the way you would have expected them to, especially since Braden Blewett is down. But another team, Prosper Walnut Grove. I mean, this was a team we thought was a 5th or 6th place team in this district, and we don't know how high their ceiling is. And right now, with a win over Anna, I mean, again, we're talking about 2 teams that could potentially, if our wrongness continues, Arlington Seguin and Prosper Walnut Grove could be like the regional championship for the right to go on to the state semifinals. So that's a couple of areas we were definitely wrong about. On the 6A side, we watched that Lake Highlands and Forney game, and we're kind of head scratching. And boy, Lake Highlands sure looks like a district champion. And Forney, after losing to North Forney, has completely upended their season, and now we don't know what's going on in 10-6A. I mean, there is definitely a scenario where Forney does not make the playoffs in 10-6A. And what I think after we saw this talent, and this is something that seemed impossible, at the beginning of the season. And this is one of those head scratchers because nothing has really changed with Forney. The big dogs are still the big dogs. They've got 5, 6, 7 D1 players on this team, but it's just not clicking. and something, they're going to have a religious meeting over there and find out, who wants to be here and who doesn't, because Forney is absolutely not living up to their expectations. And that kind of gives me a little bit of a pause, because when I'm doing my rankings this week, Ward, I think there's a legitimate case now that Plano East has to be in the rankings. And I don't like doing that just for, multiple reasons, because favoritism, bias, and all that. But there's a clean win of Plano East over North Forney with no head scratchers. Plano East beat them by 2 scores. They had Legend Bay in the game, so it wasn't like the first game where you could say, well, what about this and what about that? And now that you've got North Forney beating Forney, and Forney being competitive with Waxahachie and beating Lake Highlands, I mean, it is what it is at some point. So Forney kind of on the down the hill, in Lake Highlands winning that shootout. Christian Rhodes came back on the uphill. Those have really been some of my surprises. But Ward, I had a couple of throughout the campfire. I know you're staying warm with the campfire when we're taping those things in April. But there are a couple of areas where I was like, watch out for this, Ward. And I've pretty much been right on all of them. I'm like very proud of myself, kind of pat myself on the back here. But I said Lancaster was a playoff team when a lot of people didn't believe in Lancaster as a playoff team. I think this week they proved themselves. I was a little bit down on Anna, and I said, I don't know if Anna's going to win a playoff game. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't know if they'll win a playoff game. So far, they haven't won a district game, more, and I don't even know if they're going to get to the playoffs to have a chance to win a playoff game, especially with Emerson and Walnut Grove, who are going to be battling for playoff spots. So that was an area. And I remember we taped so long ago, I said, Ward, watch out for the Kaufman Lions. This was a 4A team moving up to 5A, and they have looked great so far. I think they're as high as number 2 now in my pick 'em. So a couple of areas where did good, Ward. You're proud of me. You got to give me a raise. You got to send that to the board of reviews. Go through the proper channels at Game Day Productions and say, this guy who said Kaufman was going to be one of the great picks. Your guy Diggsy.
I got a battle for you. I got to be your advocate for that stuff, because we got to run it through the proper channels, but we got to get you a raise. We got to get you at least 3 or 4 more shirts, maybe even a ball cap, man. Who knows? And also Crandall.
It's almost winter.
You do need a hoodie. We got to work on that too. Almost winter.
And I don't want the Houston leftover stuff, because y'all are very, very. I have to have this graphic right here. Can't have the Houston graphic. Can't have any of that stuff. Can't have any of those outlet center shirts that y'all sometimes send to me when they make too many of the Houston shirts.
Don't want any of those Buffalo Bills won the Super Bowl shirts. I'll just give it to Diggs. He'll wear it. They can't do that to you. And how about Crandall, too? You brought up Kaufman. How about Crandall, too? Crandall's also playing some good football over there.
Crandall's playing 5-0, looking great right now, but I still think that the meat of their schedule is coming up. So it's one of those 5-0s that's still a questionable 5-0. Right. Kind of like last week when you were talking about Plano East at 4-0, and you're like, we're sending a camera crew out there. And I'm like, Lord.
Don't send them yet. Don't send them yet.
I like us, but it's Prosper now,
Well, they didn't stay long, if that makes you feel better. They didn't stay too long. They saw what was happening.
We got a couple of pancake blocks, and we're like, okay.
That's a wrap. But we hadn't seen Prosper yet this year either, so we were going to 2 birds, 1 stone. Hey, you're already in a good mood, so why don't you toss some flowers out, man, since you're in such a good mood?
And Midlothian is a team that definitely deserves some flowers. It was a little dicey in that.
I was going to say that's interesting, because
nothing at one point. I was
that's interesting. That very well could have got him beat over the head with the shovel.
They figured it out. I think Midlothian has figured it out a little bit. A couple of really good games over the last few weeks, beating Harker Heights and now coming back and beating Joshua. So it looks like Midlothian, and this is what I kind of said in the campfires earlier, just the way their offense goes and their coaching schemes and kind of that tradition, even though there's like no big players that we can look at and go, we got him coming back or that person coming back. Midlothian's culture is just really good, and I think they're continuing to show that. They're reloading, and this is one of their first true reloads in a while. So they're reloading well. I'm going to give them some flowers for that. What about Richardson? I mean, this is a team that we were just really worried about Richardson. We had, you talked about Crow and kind of some positives to Richardson, but the fact that they were able to beat Richardson Berkner the way they did with defense, man, those Eagles, Marley Merker is waving that Eagle flag right now. We're excited about Richardson. I've written them off after they lost to Plano. I remember that was a shovel game.
Yep.
At that time. So we're having to kind of dust off the shovel right now and
Dig
say,
them back
I
up.
think Diggs was a little bit wrong on that one. So to make up for some prior indiscretions, I'm going to go ahead and give
We're going to
them some
replant that
flowers.
flower. After we dug the flower up, we're going to replant it. We're going to try it again.
2 weeks now, Ward, Tyler Legacy has overachieved their pay grade. They went to Crowley, ruined Crowley's homecoming, and then at home they beat in Rockwall Heath in overtime. Now all of a sudden, Tyler Legacy, with all of this young talent, looks like they could potentially be a playoff team. And Rockwall Heath is maybe on the other graphic.
Right.
So Tyler Legacy, you get your flowers. North Forney beating Forney in a rivalry game with everybody watching. They get some flowers as well. And Carrollton Creekview.
Oh, I can't wait to see him Thursday. I'm looking forward to it.
Since our guy Brett Esch was rolling quarterback over there, and he's like graduating, got his MBA and all kinds of stuff now.
David Blah.
Carrollton Creekview, man, I'm proud of Carrollton Creekview.
And that's it. Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing them Thursday night. They got a nice little Thursday game, which we'll talk about later. And man, if they get through that one, they could reel off a game or two, and they're already undefeated. I didn't expect that. So it's good to see them back on our TV screen, which we will next week. Now, with every flower comes a watch for a shovel. You don't want to get hit with the shovel. These teams aren't getting hit with them yet, but pretty close. Talk to me.
Hebron. Why does Hebron do this every year? You're a Louisville ISD expert. They win a game in non-district that they're not expected to win, and then they get to district and they look like they forgot how to play football.
Exactly. And they took care of Lancaster and that was on the road too. And now they come into district play, and here we are, back on the shovel watch.
And not even competitive against Coppell. I mean, just absolutely destroyed by Coppell. So we're on the watch. Berkner is on the watch because now Berkner has to win 2 games that they weren't expected to win to kind of overcome that Richardson loss. So they're going to have to beat Jesuit, Lake Highlands, or Pierce. Now, Lake Highlands and Berkner, they have a bit of a rivalry, so maybe Berkner has a little bit of a chance to get hyped up for that one. But if they can't get more than 60 yards, I can't see them. I can't see them winning one of those games. So Berkner is absolutely on shovel watch. But with that district, the Irving teams make you look real good real quick. So you can't completely bury them until they have a couple more losses. But Berkner, we're a little disappointed in you. Cedar Hill. I mean, this is a team that was state ranked at one point this year. We're talking about so many. They got a really good transfer from North Forney. They got the 3 offensive linemen who are all going to Texas, and now they are on shovel watch. They're going to have to beat like a Duncanville or a DeSoto to overcome what they've got, or a Waxahachie and hope for a tiebreaker. But man, Cedar Hill, that was a bad loss for them. My team, I've been hyping them up, so maybe an area where I was wrong. North Mesquite. Yeah. They can't afford any more losses now that they've lost to Creekview. So I got North Mesquite on shovel watch. Mansfield Summit in that district of depth. They did not look good against Grapevine. Man. That was an overtime game that they had to pull out. They're on shovel watch. I think Mansfield Summit is just about done. Ennis, I mean, they're just in a free fall. They got to get a game. They got to get a win.
Watch. Yeah, they're almost on give up watch.
I know you love saying that with them. And then Aubrey, our friends in Aubrey, getting rolled by them East Texas schools, or North Texas schools as I like to call them. And you're going to see them in the rankings this week. Paris and Sulphur Springs. Every game was a surprise in that district. Salina beating Panther Creek the way they did, and then you had Paris and Sulphur Springs beating Lake Dallas and whoever else was in the district, Lake Dallas and Aubrey. Man, shovel watches for Aubrey. That's going to be hard for Aubrey to overcome that in this district. That
is. And before we go on to the ones who really got the shovel, I throw a flower of my own. I don't have a graphic, but I got to give it to Mesquite Boutique. Been 17 games, and Coach McLean finally got one worth them. And they dominated Greenville. They did it on defense. Montreal I forgot his last name. Montreal Hodge with 2 picks, 2 touchdowns on the defensive side of the ball. Congratulations getting off the schneid. I'm not booking your trip to AT&T Stadium, but that was a big win. What are we talking about with the shovels? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I know you've got some curses you're going to want to talk about at some point, but you know who picked Poteet to win? That's
You
me.
did.
You
This
know who picked
guy.
Sam Houston to end their winning streak? That's me. I'm
He's
the
ending them.
opposite of the curse. I'm ending these losing streaks. You're
He's
creating all
ending it.
kinds of curses, but I'm picking winners over here on digging for wisdom. But I'm also burying some people this week. And Arlington Lamar, after losing to Haltom, they're done.
It's a wrap.
Rockwell Heath, after losing to Tyler Legacy, they're done. And
That's a wrap.
Seagoville, after losing to Samuel, they're done as well. I mean, at this point, like Seagoville's got to be like South Oak Cliff. I mean, they got to do something completely unexpected. It ain't happening. Arlington Lamar's got to do a couple of things that were unexpected. That ain't happening. Rockwell Heath, same thing. There's no way they're going to overcome that hole. So shovels for them. Man, three teams that I thought were potential playoff teams,
Right.
all done.
All gone and all buried. Well, before we get into the games, you mentioned it before, man. There is a curse going around on Inside High School Sports, and it has to do with one of our favorite deals. If you haven't watched the show, which I'd be pretty upset if you guys don't watch the show, but if you haven't watched the show, it's been like 8 or 9 years.
Pays his salary, folks.
Exactly.
His salary.
Where
he pays my salary, and you pay his salary.
It's
watch
been about exactly. How's he going to get these sweet shirts if we can't watch the show? So I know you're watching it, and you know we give out these MVP bobbleheads. We figured a long time ago that these poor kids have had a room full of trophies and plaques, and they can't tell the difference between one thing or from the other. So we instead decided to come up with the old bobblehead scheme. This is one that we're going to give to Riley Pettijohn a little later in the year. It was a great thing. Obviously, it didn't start off great because we gave it to Kyler Murray, and it was the first one. I was nervous, and I handed it to him, and I swear if there was a trash can next to him, he would have chucked it right in there. He had no interest in the bobblehead, and I thought we were done right from the beginning. But after that, every single person had loved it since then until maybe now. Because now we have a lineup of bobblehead winners that are going to get them, either have gotten them or getting them during the show, and they're all heading to the hospital because for some reason – there's a curse going around like the Sports Illustrated curse or the Madden curse, whatever you want to call it. We've got Braden Blewett done for the year. I saw a picture of Michael Turner laid out with the knee injury. He's getting one later in the year. Riley Wormley, the poor guy. It's talking to Jack Van Dorselaer last year. It doesn't sound like he might make it throughout this year. Taz Williams, he at least got his bobblehead when he was still playing, but he's done for the year. So I'm starting to worry that these guys aren't going to show up for the show because they've heard things about what happens if you get a bobblehead. But, man, I got to shake this thing. And if that's the case, I'm going to give you a bobblehead so we can keep you away from Plano East. All of a sudden, you got a hamstring pull or something so that Plano East can pull off an upset over Prosper so that you don't have to.
You made the Daniel Fayampo season last year, too.
That's
so,
true.
I mean, come on.
And we were just chiseling away at his bobblehead, but then all of a sudden he got hurt. And I was like, all right, stop the production. We're all right. We got to figure this out, Diggs, because I can't have this. I can't. I feel like I'm a bad luck charm, and I don't want to be that. It's a nice thing going on.
There are some really big numbers who are getting put up, and probably getting put on our fantasy team is not helping either because you're going to see that coming up. You get put on our fantasy. We put you on there, and all of a sudden you're either not playing or not getting targeted.
You're throwing for 20 yards.
You're digging for wisdom curse.
You average 300. You average 300 yards a game, and you throw for 20. That's another curse that we got going on here. All right, let's go into some games. 3-6A's playing some football this week. They're not on the bye. We got Crowley, who loves Diggs over there, taking on Saginaw Boswell, who was a big surprise for you last week, and they're kind of turning heads this time and fighting for that postseason.
Yeah, I mean, Saginaw Boswell played really competitive with Mansfield, 41-40. I mean, Boswell is like the lovable losers right now because they find a way to almost win almost every game. But then, we keep putting them up there because, man, Boswell, they are losing beautifully. It's like the Commanders from the last couple of years. They just lose beautifully. And then eventually something happens and, they figure it out. And will they figure it out this week against a Crowley team that has looked a little lost at times, but maybe figured it out against the Kangaroos from Weatherford this past week, or the talent just kind of dipped to a point where Crowley was able to take advantage of some things. I think Crowley is going to win this game in a heartbreaker for Boswell, but I think it's going to be close again. So that leads me to say if Boswell can just get one special teams play, one turnover, or a pick six or something, a safety, just something to change the tide, I think Boswell has like a 40% chance to win this game. But Crowley, I think, has a 60% chance to win this game. And Ward, you know that 60 is greater than 50.1%. And that is my threshold to pick you. And so since Crowley has a 60% chance to win, they're my Eagles this week.
That's who you're going for. I got you. All right, moving on to 4-6A. We got Byron Nelson and Timber Creek. Byron Nelson, get your opinion on Byron Nelson last week. I was obviously at the game. They were throwing with success all first half. Second half, they kind of went to the running game a little bit. Maybe they're trying to limit possessions for Trinity because they were running quite well. I'll get into Trinity in a second. But Byron Nelson, they're down 3. They're at the 14. It's 4th and 1. No, it's over with if they don't get it. Would you have kicked the field goal and tried your luck in overtime, or would you have gone for it? That's my first question to you. And second, they rolled out and threw the ball instead of trying to some sort of run pass option where you could get that 1 yard. And he looked like he had an open path to get a yard and keep the thing going. There's still 1:15 left. Your thoughts on that strategy? I think you're a go for it kind of guy, so I'm not too worried about what you're going to say there. But do you think you would have played a run past option type dude?
I actually disagree with that. Given if you listen to me and you listen to this podcast, which I guess you are right now if you're listening to this,
right.
I said that I was a little bit worried about Byron Nelson on the Lions, and when you've got 1 yard and that field is compacted right there, just take the 3. Just take the 3, get it to overtime, let it expand a little bit more, figure it out, and let it play out. And the fact that Byron Nelson didn't do that, I think he kicked the field goal at that point because 4th and 1 is the hardest yard to get, and it's not like they're just beating up a team like Trinity in the trenches. They're using Bizjak's speed. They're using Bizjak's arm to stay in that game. I'd feel better if it was almost 4th and 8 or something. You got to go for it at that point, or it's like a mid-range field goal. Now, if you remember in that game against Louisville, Byron Nelson's kicking game was a little bit, off. Okay. So maybe that was part of the thinking as far as, they didn't trust the 31-yard field goal. Therefore, they trusted the situation with Bizjak. And Bizjak, as we'll talk about later on in the show, I mean, he was not the problem in this game.
No,
it was those areas that I was talking about in my analysis last week that were the problem, that Byron Nelson's offensive line just wasn't what it was in the past. The defense hasn't been. Defense in spots are great. You got Parker and Leo Almanzo playing both ways. You got both of them back there. You're doing pretty good for yourself. But it's the depth of defense and the depth of the offensive line that Byron Nelson had the last couple of years been a little bit of a struggle. The playmakers are still the playmakers. So I kick the field goal. I take it to overtime and take my chances with that. But you were there, and I know you have very complimentary of Bizjak, but you also had some questions about some other things in that game.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I mean, it seems like it's been this way for a couple of years now, but we've got to figure out the discipline issues over there at Trinity. It's getting completely out of control, and they almost lost the game because of it. 2 players ejected because they got both players got 2 flagrants thrown on them for arguing with the ref and not ending it, not stopping. And it's not like this is the first time I've seen it. It's happened many times before. It's happened earlier this year. I had a photographer at a Trinity game. Same stuff happens. The penalties that I don't know what they can do, but Coach Lineweaver's got to get that thing figured out because it will cost them a game at some point. They ended up winning that game because they got a pass interference called on 4th down when they were driving to score from a referee that was like 30 yards away, threw it, and the referee was right next to him. Wasn't a fan favorite on the Byron side. Matter of fact, I think one fan lost his voice the way he was hollering at the guys with 2 security guys right next to him not doing a thing. I was like, you want to quiet this guy down? It's getting a little bit too much. But they ended up getting the win. But it's going to cost them. They're going to end up with a loss they're not supposed to have, and then all of a sudden everything goes into turmoil here for playoff proceedings and all this stuff. But, man, it's a problem that needs to be addressed and hasn't been addressed in quite some time. But if you want to comment on that, you can, but then that leaves us with this Byron Nelson Timber Creek game that you want to analyze a little bit.
Yeah, this is one of those very kind of bittersweet games for Byron Nelson because we're at the point in the season where we're starting to look at who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, and where does that send your playoff path. Well, right now, Trinity has basically got 2 games up on Byron Nelson if both of them go for Division One in our avoid North Crowley in the first round battle. But Byron Nelson right now is a very big fan of who they're playing right now, Timber Creek, because if Timber Creek can make the playoffs, then all of a sudden that pushes Byron Nelson down to D2. And as we've been talking about, there's nobody good over there in 3-6A other than North Crowley. So I'm sure Byron Nelson would love to see anybody else other than North Crowley in the first round. So there is a hypothetical where maybe you let Timber Creek get a win they shouldn't to help things out and trust things. I know they won't do that, but I think Byron Nelson's going to want to motivate Timber Creek. Come on, guys, we're going to beat you right now, but we need you to beat Justin Northwest. We need you to get in the playoffs because if my pick right now, which is Justin Northwest to be in that 4th spot, makes the playoffs, and Byron Nelson versus North Crowley in the first round, that ain't going to be good for Byron Nelson at all. But Timber Creek, after losing to South Lake Carroll, that's what made me downgrade them from the 4th spot to the 5th spot because they were not competitive. So I need to see Timber Creek be competitive against a good team. I don't think we're going to see it, Ward. I think Byron Nelson's going to roll.
Yeah, I think they are as well. There's a couple good ones in 5-6A or a couple meaningful ones. Any other week, this probably will be our game of the week, Coppell versus Geyer, but there's so many bangers this week. There's 3 or 4 of them that are really good games. So it'll be shot, but it's not going to be the game of the week. But it's going to be the game of the week in this district. This could be for the district title. Talk to me about this one.
You know, I talk about this in the warm-up in detail, and the one statistic that I was just completely shocked at from last week, Ward, from Denton Geyer and Flower Mound. I know Flower Mound can make a lot of people a little crazy. I know it makes you a little bit crazy sometimes living there, but Denton Geyer got 25 penalties for 200 yards last week, Ward.
Yeah, that's too
You can't
much.
do that.
No.
Flower Mound's looking at that. Flower Mound had 4 turnovers in that game and lost by 1 score.
Right.
I mean, Flower Mound's looking at this like, come on, how undisciplined can we be? How undisciplined can you be? And we still almost win this game. Coppell, on the other hand, they look like they got it figured out. I mean, the way they beat Hebron just methodically on every side of the every aspect, special teams, offense, defense, and now it looks like they got a running game, a go-to running back in Josh Locke. I think Coppell is not only going to beat Denton Geyer, but I think they're going to make a statement against Denton Geyer this week and kind of beat them handily.
What's a statement mean? 21 plus?
2 to 3 scores. I mean, Denton Geyer doesn't lose by 2 to 3 scores much. So if you go double digits on Denton Geyer, you're doing something right.
Absolutely. All right, talk to me about Marcus and Hebron. This one's a playoff type situation. You can't afford to lose this joint.
We got a shovel game, Ward. I mean, you got the loser of this one is pretty much done. You go to 0-2 in this district with still having Coppell, Denton Geyer on the schedule. It's not looking good for you. I mean, the fact that Marcus lost that game in heartbreaking fashion to Louisville in overtime, and it was a game in the first half. I was thinking, man, Louisville looks like they're back. But then Marcus, that third quarter, they fought right back into it. Then Hebron, they were never in it. So now that we're having our head-scratching moments about Hebron, I think Marcus just matches up a little bit better. Marcus's offense hasn't been what I thought it would be with Nussmeier in there, but their defense has been really, really good, and I think that's going to be the factor that I think is going to give them a little bit of an edge over Hebron because a good defense can slow down Hebron. And Hebron showed against Coppell that they're not going to score much. And I think Hebron showed that they're going to give up a lot of points just about anybody they're playing. So I think Marcus has a style points and styles clash advantage over Hebron. I think Marcus wins this game. It could get ugly if Hebron plays the way they did against Coppell. But when Louisville ISD schools play each other, it's almost always a 1 or 2 score game. So I think Marcus is going to win it kind of in that 25 to 17. It's always ugly scores too.
Yeah,
what about these Louisville? Like there's always a safety or
some
a blocked extra
score.
point for a 2-point return. Something crazy always happens. But
18 to 11. I'm predicting 18 to 11. Good grief. All right, let's move to, and this is one that my man Pox will be at. Jesuit against Richardson Pierce. I like this game. I think this game will be competitive. He's going to have to leave at halftime, but I think this will be competitive throughout. Your boy Casagrande out there has my quarterback got himself together over at Jesuit. Talk to me about what you think is going to happen in this one.
Well, Jesuit, it's week 5 in this season, Ward, and I still don't think we have much of a read on Jesuit because they played all these teams that really they did, and they weren't very competitive. Playing New Orleans Jesuit just does not help us here in Dallas. Try to figure out what Jesuit is and where they fit into all of this. And then the games they did play against area teams, they weren't competitive in any of those games as well. Then you got Richardson Pierce, who seems to always be missing for a half. Like against Wylie, they were there for the first half, but then missing for the second half. Lake Highlands looked like they were going to blow them out. And then all of a sudden, you're looking up in the fourth quarter, and that's a one-score game. So, Richardson Pierce is a team you cannot sleep on. But Richardson Pierce still hasn't figured it out for 48 minutes. But they've at least figured it out for 24 minutes at times, whereas Jesuit, I don't think, has figured it out for 24 minutes if they're playing at least a decent team. I think Richardson Pierce wins this game kind of handily because Jesuit hasn't shown to be competitive against the good teams at all. I think you'll get your highlights, Ward. I think you'll have highlights, but I think Pierce will probably be up 28-14 at halftime and probably end up win a 49-28 kind of a game.
Gotcha. Hey, I don't usually get super duper excited about a 9-6A game, but I am for this one. Sachse, Wylie East. I would be shocked if you disagree. This is for the district title. Talk to me about these two powerhouses play and the fact that it's at Wylie ISD, besides being right outside your house. How much does it give Wylie East a little bit of an advantage in this one?
We have to go through Kimbrough to get there. I got to take a diagonal, kind of cut through the Kimbrough parking lot, go through the creek, and then I'm over there. It's close. But, close. I'd say,
by the way,
Lovejoy and Kimbrough are a little bit closer.
It's a Diggs and Wizzy special. So that's always something nice, too. We'll both be at that.
We're going to have a date night at Taco Delight.
Exactly. I'm all for it. The Diggs and Wizzy special. All right. Now tell me what's going to happen.
What do you order at Taco Delight? What's your if we're at a fast food Mexican restaurant, they've got your burritos and tacos and salads and stuff. What do you think your go-to will be? You haven't looked at the menu. What do you think your go-to will be?
I think it will be, if you're saying it's fast food, because I've never been there, so I'm not going to sit down for a fajitas, which is my go-to thing. It'll either be it's either going to be a quesadilla or a burrito, a steak burrito or a steak quesadilla.
They don't got steak, Ward. We're not that fancy.
Okay, well then it's just a.
Not get a steak.
What am I going to get then? A cheeseburger?
Got ground beef and chicken, Ward.
All right.
Look at this guy. This guy wants steak. This guy wants filet mignon.
If you will.
He got to pick you up when he's drinking over here.
If you will.
I'm worried about him getting paid. He's getting paid too much if he can't know what he's going to order at a fast food Mexican restaurant.
All right, we're getting a soft taco with chicken and extra sour cream. And yourself?
Okay, that's fine. But I'm excited about this game enough to where we got a lot of good games, Ward. You got Aledo and Denton Ryan, which is like number 1 versus number 2 in the state. You got Coppell and Denton Geyer. But I'm looking at the schedule and I'm like, this game, Ward. This is the one I want to see. We can see Aledo and Denton Ryan in maybe the 4th round of the playoffs. We may see that game again. But Sachse and Wylie East, this is a game where I got both these teams highly ranked. One of my Garland ISD insiders thinks Wylie East is going to win. They've seen both teams in the last couple of weeks, and he's like, man, Wylie East defensive line is really good. Sachse looks like they got exposed this past week. But again, when I'm looking at the calibration, I'm looking at who's the best player on the field. It's Khalid Lockett, and he seems to shine on the biggest stages.
Yep.
This is one of those weird games that it could end up like 10-7, and you're like scratching your head looking for highlights. Or it could just be 58-55. I think it's going to be an offensive explosion. I think both teams are going to come out and give us their best. I think Sachse is just a little bit better than Wylie East this year, so I'm going to take Sachse in this.
They do have the best player out there, but we can't shake our stick at Michael Henderson. I still think he can be a game changer as well. So I'm excited to see it. I haven't been out to Wylie, and it's ever since Ted's been working out at Mesquite. I don't get out to Wylie that much because he takes over those games, but he's now off Kaufman or Crandall somewhere and doesn't feel like making his way up that way, so I'm going to give it a shot, and it should be an exciting game, hopefully. That's what I'm banking on. Let's move to 10-6A. Rockwall Longview. Is this a district title matchup? Well, who knows now the way North Forney's playing?
Is it? And how about this, Ward? I mean, I wish I was a Longview expert. I know you hate when I talk about all these out-of-area teams. You're like, Longview ain't a DFW area team. What are you talking about, Diggs? Yeah, but I can't imagine the last time Longview has lost 3 straight at home. South Oak Cliff, Ruston. They got Rockwall coming out there.
Right.
And now you got Rockwall, which is like a wounded animal, but they looked really good against Royce City as a wounded animal. I thought about that Rickard as my fantasy quarterback this week, because he seems to be putting up big numbers, and Rockwall seems to support that. I think Rockwall is going to give them 3 straight losses at Lobo Stadium.
Woo!
It's hard. I don't think it's
hard.
going to be easy, but I think Rockwall is going to head east and bring home a win for the dub, the DFW.
The true DFW.
The digging for wisdom.
There we go. I'd like to see that, man, because I still got that bad taste in that 70-point game they gave when I was there live to take it all in. So I'm looking forward to that,
what I need
man.
you to do, Ward,
what's that?
Call Bally's.
Call Bally's, see if they can get us something.
Get this one on TV this week.
Bring it over
Call
here.
Bally's.
All right.
Or at least get it on as a social media exclusive or something, because we want to see this game.
Let's do it. I'm getting it. I'm going to call Bally's tomorrow. Can't call them this late at night. All right. Here's the other one. Another one that could be game of the week somewhere else. But like we said, we'll probably see it again. Denton Ryan against Aledo. At the beginning of the season, we thought 3-5A Division I was between 3 teams. Well, we didn't think it was between 3 teams, but we had 3 quality teams in there. With that Michael Turner injury, that may take away a little bit from Richland. They may be just throwing it all over the place. But these two are the clear top dogs. They've been perennial powers for a long time. Tell me what you feel about this one being out in Aledo.
I want you to count me down, Ward. Give me a 3-second
and
countdown.
A 3.
You know somebody's going to clip this.
Exactly. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Digsy.
Both these teams are horrible. What is wrong with these teams? You got Denton Ryan, who doesn't understand quarterbacking. They don't understand how to get the right quarterback in there. He throws for 7 touchdowns against Granbury. Then you got Aledo, on the other hand, who has more turnovers than Apple Fritter over here, just loves turnovers. This is the broken game. You got 2 broken teams who are number 1 and number 2 in the state, who can't seem to figure out their identity by any means, under any kind of consistency. What is wrong with these teams, Ward? These are 2 broken teams playing each other for the right to be a state champion. I don't like either of these teams. I think it ends in a 28-28 tie.
And
that's
then,
what I think, Ward.
That's what it's going to happen? Dadgummit. Give somebody, what do they call it? Penetrations. Who wins on penetrations?
Penetrations. Well, we're digging for too much wisdom when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, Ward, I think, I don't like the Denton Ryan quarterback situation. I've talked about that. He's looking great the last couple of weeks. Wants to make me eat my words. If he continues to perform like that, he very well might. I mean, he was like 12 or 13 last week with 7 touchdowns. I mean, that's video game numbers right there. I don't care who it is. I mean, that's efficiency right there. But Aledo, when Aledo is playing that kind of style of football where they're not having turnovers, they are just really, really good, and they are more complete than Denton Ryan. When I watch these 2 teams on film and I kind of break it down, it looks like from 1 to 22, Aledo is just better almost at every single position. Denton Ryan's got a few players that are obviously very talented and very good, but Aledo just has more depth. If Aledo can avoid the 3 turnovers at home, I think they're going to win this game. They might win it handily, because I think their defense is going to pressure Hennigan into making some mistakes. And I think when they push that, and I don't think they have the running game that can compensate for that. Like, okay, let's take the ball out of his hands and kind of deflate the ball and kind of just run the ball with our offensive line. Aledo, they'll stack the box. They'll take care of that real quick. So I think Denton Ryan's going to have to force and win the game in the air. I just don't trust them to do that. Now, can Denton Ryan's defense be good enough to get the 3 turnovers? Absolutely. But at some point, the law of averages has to go the other way. And certainly we're going to have a game of consequence where Aledo doesn't have 3 turnovers at some point, right?
Right. You got
right?
That's what you got to think.
Got to have it.
It's got to happen. Maybe it'll happen this time.
It's due.
They are definitely due.
It's like if you're an NFL pro team and you've had like 16 straight drives where you score without punting, eventually it's got to end, right?
Punt. Exactly. Eventually you're going to have to take the smelling salts to your punter, wake him up, get him out there, and have it do it his way, the Tresh way. Anyway, we have another playoff spot that has to happen if we're giving Aledo, Ryan, and Richland playoff spots. There's one more, and it may be between these guys. Talk to me. Azle against Birdville, a game of this consequence because Azle has really impressed you early on and they're undefeated in district play, but the loser of this game is in a bad way, which makes this game a shovel watch.
Isn't it crazy that we may we're talking about our undefeated teams in this district, and we're just looking at Richland and Hazel as the undefeated teams right now.
Right.
Especially if Aledo beats Denton Ryan this next week, it's like Hazel and who would have known Hazel versus Richland for the district title coming up. I kid Aledo and Denton Ryan fans. Aledo, quit throwing turnovers. Denton Ryan, consider having the senior be quarterback, trick us all, and then all of a sudden, because last year against Aledo, they put Braden Mussett in. All of a sudden, it turned around. Yep. Maybe they're long playing us. You never know. But Hazel and Birdville, Hazel has looked really, really good. They're putting up 40, 50 points a game against just about everybody. I don't think they're going to do it against Denton Ryan and Aledo. But all of a sudden, Richland's defense has started to be a little bit more questionable. You're worried about Michael Turner. I'm worried about the defense at this point. It seems like running back, if there is one position that you have a player go down, that's probably your best position to have a player go down in because, I think the next man up for obviously Michael Turner is a very special talent, not diminishing that. But you watch track, Ward. I know you love sending the camera out to the track meets. Richland's got speed. Richland's got some players who can get the ball down the field. And even if they have to go crazy air raid offense, they got the players on who can handle that. So I trust that Richland's going to be okay. I trust in Hazel in this game. I think Hazel is going to give Birdville the shovel. And in Hazel, Ward, who would have thought that Hazel would be the 5-0 team, a 5-0 team in this district going into week 7?
You wouldn't have.
I'm calling it Hazel.
No, that would be a nice win considering the teams they've beaten have a combined 2 wins, and this Birdville team's got 2 of themselves. So it'd be a good win and certainly give them momentum going into the real meat of the thing, and they might make it in there as a 4th seed. And as we said, any of the 4 teams that win have a very good chance against 4 5A as they play a little bit of a weaker district, but they'd probably get a Saginaw over there.
I think Arlington
Heights. That'll be a Thursday game. So, there a way we can get you that one? That's not this week, but next week. All right, that's right. You
don't. I got next week off board. It's our bye week next week, so I'm completely.
Yeah, open. But you still don't like looking at schedules until like Wednesday.
I don't like looking at schedules.
All right, well, I already know
what's happening next week. What is happening next week?
We're going to be at Saginaw Arlington Heights. Saginaw Arlington Heights on a Thursday. It's going up on a Thursday. All right, let's move on to 5A Division 1. Lebanon Trail versus McKinney North. Leave it to me to pick a guy that runs for 293 yards in our fantasy thing and still get my butt kicked up and down. Why can't I pick all 3 players? Well, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. And plus, Cam Powell made the catch of the year so far. That was a beautiful one-handed catch in the back of the end zone. They're taking on Lebanon Trail, who's actually scoring points against some of these big dogs, including a very impressive showing against Reedy, despite being a loss. Talk to me about this game, why you got it on the list.
Yeah, Lebanon Trail is 0-2. I think they're the only team in this district that has not had a win, but they're probably one of my favorite teams in this district right now because it's like something is different about Lebanon Trail this year. It's like that Prosper Walnut Grove. You look at it and you're just like, when are they going to get a win? Because the way they played Reedy, Reedy held Wakeland to 50 yards last week, 2 weeks ago, and then Lebanon Trail goes into Reedy and they just like, I don't see where the problem is. Yeah. Now, Lebanon Trail's got some defensive deficiencies that, obviously are going to cost them. But watching McKinney North, I was not blown away by them as a team. Greg Ard, absolutely blown away by him. Some of their receivers, absolutely running their routes. They got to find a way to get the ball out to some of those receivers. Cam Powell and a couple of their other wideouts. Even if we got to do some jet sweeps or something, you got to get the ball in their hands because they're just sitting there blocking downfield for Greg Ard, and they're too good for that. And you got to find a way to get them the ball. So I feel like McKinney North, even though they won this past week, there's just something there that's not right about them. And you got Lebanon Trail, who hasn't won a game, but there's something right about Lebanon Trail. I'm not going to go as far as to call it an upset, but I'm going to give them the Prosper Walnut Grove treatment because I came on here and I said, Ward, Prosper Walnut Grove against Emerson. I don't think they can beat them, but I sure think they're going to try. I sure think it's going to be close. Right. And sure enough, they did it. I don't think Lebanon Trail could beat McKinney North, but I think it's going to be close. And I think they very well could, but I just don't have the courage to call it for the upset because I got to worry about pick'em championships.
Right.
And McKinney North should be a favorite. But, man, Lebanon Trail has won when you get 500 yards against that Frisco Reedy defense,
That was wild.
That is crazy. And this is their second straight week where they've done this.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a close one.
McKinney North's defense
You're
is
right.
not
They
good.
need to.
I mean, Wakeland was able to do whatever they wanted.
They need to see if they can work that thing to Campbell. You know, he said he's an Oklahoma State guy too, so it's not like he's just a guy that made a great catch. He's a solid receiver. So you're right. They mix it up a little bit for him. All right, let's move on to 6-5A Division I. It's the first time we've seen Newman Smith on our graphic because they've been playing. They've been beating up on bad teams, and they got beat pretty bad by Walnut Grove. But North Mesquite, you've held out their thing out for North Mesquite, and I'm thinking you're predicting an upset here, or maybe you won't even find an upset, but a competitive game.
Here's a spoiler: you may see Newman Smith on a different graphic later on in this show. Just saying, it might happen.
Well, let's see.
But North Mesquite, I don't think they're at Newman Smith's level. But the way that W.T. White lost to West Mesquite, I'm still believing in North Mesquite and making the playoffs. It just might be at W.T. White's expense instead of Carrollton Creekview's expense. Who would have thought, Ward, that Newman Smith and Carrollton Creekview, the battle of Josie Lane, when you ignore R.L. Turner, we're going a little bit further down Josie Lane, was going to be for potentially a district championship seeding important game. Man, Ward, we're gonna have to give Kenny a camera so he can go out there and not take your expenses and get us a Carrollton Creekview versus Newman Smith set of footage for, again, social media exclusive. I know you value your TV time. You tell me, Diggs, we got 30 seconds of TV time for you. About 3 hours later, can't do it.
I cut you out completely. Sorry, you're out.
Get out of there. And
you got the dunk still.
We got to cut other things from you too, which can't have your 30 seconds. But I think Newman Smith is going to win this game convincingly. But I think they gave up some points against Molina, so I think North Mesquite can, put up some points. But I think Newman Smith, that's going to help them put up in the 60s, which is going to be important for me later on.
That will be important for you later on. And you've certainly shown that you can do these things later on too. W.T. White and Creekview. You just talked a little bit about it. I mean, we can talk a little bit more, but this could bounce White completely out of contention if they don't find a way to give Creekview their lone loss of the season.
Yeah, I think this is really important for middle calibration in this district because I think you got Newman Smith and I think you got West Mesquite as your top two. But what about that middle three? You got W.T. White, North Mesquite, and Carrollton Creekview. We saw Carrollton Creekview and North Mesquite. That game was a 1-point game in the fourth quarter. I mean, North Mesquite was there, and then Creekview pulled away in the fourth quarter. But the way Creekview is playing right now, I think they're going to win it. I mean, W.T. White not scoring at all against West Mesquite. Yeah. I mean, Princeton put up some points against West Mesquite. I mean, West Mesquite's defense is not the doomsday Pittsburgh defense. I mean, they got some athletes out there, but for them to get nothing on them, I think W.T. White is going to struggle with Carrollton Creekview. And I guess it'll let us know how close Creekview is to Newman Smith and to West Mesquite in this game. And I think they're going to have to do it at W.T. White's expense.
Yeah, and with Creekview having Turner and Adams coming up, they could go all the way up to 8-0 before they hit those two big dogs at the end. It's probably been a while since they've been 8-0. We'll have to do the research department. And they
just call Brett Esch. That's all you need to do. Just call up Brett Esch and say, Brett, when was the last time Creekview was 8-0? And he's going to say,
I don't know. Call me back. All right, 7-5A Division I. Highland Park against Red Oak. Red Oak's gone to the one quarterback, and they're ready to take on Highland Park at their home Billy Goodlow Stadium. No Taz Williams, but they still have other receivers. I don't know. It still seems like a Highland Park big win here, but by 2 scores for me. I don't know what big wins for you is, but tell me what you feel about this game, my man.
The thing that I keep being more and more impressed about with Highland Park every single week, and we saw it against Tyler High last week, is their defense. Their defense is scheming their way into stopping a team. And now you got Red Oak, who's down a couple of big weapons. Who's going to get out there? I mean, got Taz Williams out there on the edge. It's like they're having a hard time getting the balls outside to the wide receivers, kind of the same problem we were talking about with McKinney North earlier. I think Red Oak is just not going to have the game plan to beat Highland Park. I think Highland Park is going to win this game defensively. I think offensively they're going to score enough. I think it's going to be an ugly kind of like a 24-10 kind of a game, but I think Highland Park is going to win ugly, but win at Goodlow. Get them a new stadium over there.
They need a new one, don't they? They need a new one. You're right about that. Division two, Timberview, Seguin. Seguin is just having fun. They're doing things. We talked to them last year, and they talked about how they only got the one middle school feeding in their school, and but now they're just having a blast. And I picked last week. Again, we keep talking about fantasy. We'll get into it. I picked Carterius Brown, just thinking he's the SMU guy. They're going to get it to him all the time. But boy, did I not realize Chevy's got a bunch of players in the levy that he can pick from, and he's throwing them all over the place. But they're playing against a tough defense here. They're playing Timberview that's proven that they're battle tested on defense. That's offense where they struggled. Can they find a way to get enough points to get past Timberview and keep on winning?
Timberview looks like at Everman's expense that they finally figured out a little bit of the offensive side of the ball. And even against some of the other bad teams they played this year, they still struggled finding points on the board. And then all of a sudden they got 47. So it's like, you lose your quarterback, you kind of have to deal with that. And now all of a sudden you start to figure out the practice starts to kick in a little bit more because Timberview is keeping a lot of defenses, defensively, they're able to stop just about anybody. So can Seguin, like you said, put up the points against this defense? I think they're able to put up enough because I just don't trust that Timberview is going to score against even an average sort of defense. It's not going to be pretty, but I think Seguin wins like a 21-6 kind of a game and able to pretty much slot themselves in that second spot because then with that, they're kind of in the playoffs and all they got to do is Colleyville Heritage and Argyle. You get those two games kind of set up. We could have some very interesting bedfellows for district championships. But if all of a sudden Timberview wins this game, that puts Seguin at risk, and Seguin has to be kind of on guard because this district of depth is legit. I mean, I was talking about Mansfield Summit being on shovel watch just because, the way they played against Grapevine, any of those bottom tier teams can get you. So you can't afford a loss in a game like this. No. I still think Timberview is that 4 seed. They're hanging on. I think Seguin should be able to win this game. Seguin just has too many athletes, and I think that's going to offset some of those defensive advantages that Timberview has because they're not going to be able to slow down. As you talked about, Carterius Brown, SMU commit. This is a player who should be able to do well. He got shut down, but we got 8 other players who can pick it up. So I think Seguin will lean into that depth and win this game.
And they get to have him over there at Wyoming, so that'll be a good advantage for them too.
Might be closer to Timberview though.
This is a game of the week. Yeah, you might be right. Well, Newsom's right around the block from, so that would have been a closer. But Melissa Lovejoy, you had a calibration game last week as they played Anna. Lovejoy only beat Anna by 4, and they beat them by 2. But good grief, they couldn't score on them. So talk to me about what you think about this game because they're going to need to score if they're playing a Lovejoy team. Todd Dodds coach team.
Melissa just looked very lethargic at times. Noah Schuback only went 5 of 15. My guy, the touchdown, Jacob Nye, the touchdown guy, wasn't in the lineup. I think he there could be an injury there. We don't know. We don't get like the NFL scouting reports where you have to. A lot of these coaches don't like talking about that kind of stuff. But when a player of that talent isn't in the box score, it's probably because he's not in the game. Right. That's speculation. So if he may have been out there, I didn't get to see the tape. You put him up against Zay Gentry or something, and Zay is a shutdown cornerback at times. But Melissa just looked a little bit off the offensive line. It's not like Anna learned that much defensively in 1 week, So I think Melissa just has a couple of depth issues. Their 22 are really, really good. That's one of the things we talked about in the campfire. But the depth, Melissa is still working on that D1 and 6A kind of a depth. But, their top 22 are pretty solid. Lovejoy has got the depth. They've got the football program. 2 years ago, Melissa won this game by 1 point in kind of a crazy ending. But last year, Lovejoy completely shut him out. And now you got Lovejoy again. It looks like they're kind of figuring things out as Todd Dodge is getting to work more of his magic. You can see more of that comfort level with Lovejoy. I think Lovejoy is going to win this game. I think they may win this game convincingly like they did last year. Kind of a Panther Creek Salina thing where the advantages for Lovejoy were just so much. It just got ugly.
It did get ugly. Well, that's the games for this week. And then we have to move on to our weekly.
So many bye weeks, Ward. What are we going to do with this? Well, I think we should abolish the bye week for districts going forward. Right now,
exactly. Just
no more. No other district is allowed to have a bye week. Individual teams can, but no more.
You can't do it for a complete district, so that we have something to have fun with. Give them 2 here, 2 there. A Fun little deal. Weekly fantasy would have been great in my favor. We shut the thing down after Thursday. We shut it down after Thursday. I would have won like 283 to nothing. But we played.
Stop the vote right there.
Stop the vote.
Call it. And you're like, you watch this and you enjoy it.
Exactly.
Like you had to do against Genesec last
year. But we didn't stop it there. We've played it all the way out, and now I'm sitting here at 2-3. As I told you, 283. So that my receiver and quarterback get me 70 points, 60 points, 50 points. It's ridiculous. I don't know what I was thinking. I got my Panther Creek quarterback got shut down by that muscle-bound Bill Elliott over there at Salina. He threw for like 23 yards. He's been averaging 300. I mean, I don't know.
You got to watch Nick Nack Bizjack give this guy a bone.
He gave him a bone, and it's a complete blowout. When I was killing you at the beginning, and your guy at Nye didn't even do anything. He didn't get 0 points. I knew this was going to happen. I knew this would happen as soon as I poked the bear. Now I poked him. I'm getting mauled. You're eating all the food out of my container here. This big old bear up at my door trying to cut through the window. I should have just left you alone. I should have just let you run off into the
bear
woods.
likes steak, filet mignon, and he doesn't get it at his house because we don't have the fancy budget that the producer of Inside High School Sports over there, who gets a hat, by the way, who gets headphones, who gets high definition cameras, and he's got if you look at Ward right now, he's got like a sweatshirt on because his arms are so buff from carrying cameras around. He doesn't like to show off right now because he doesn't want to have his DMs flooded by all the single women in Louisville ISD who are like, Wizzy, look at those shoulders, look at that definition. Can't do it, Wizzy, with that kind of Game Day Productions budget while I'm sitting here just hoping for a taco, Ward. Just hoping you'll give me a taco.
That's all we want to taco. We even cut Diggs' pants bucket. He's sitting over there with the swimming trunks on. We can't show you that, but we cut his pants budget out completely. Can't do it no more. And gosh, I got to get these Flower Man women off my chin up only. Let's go into this week. I know you've done your research and I've done mine. Who are you going for quarterback?
Michael Turner's out, so we're kind of one-dimensional, but that one dimension's pretty good. I think Fossil Ridge gives up a lot of points right now. I think, and then a lot of second-half comebacks and things like that. I think Richland, I'm looking for 400 for my guy, Drew Cates.
Yeah, this is going to be trouble.
May not be the last time you see Richland either.
I was going to say, this is going to be trouble because I have a feeling you're going to try to double down. I'm going over to Timber Creek. I'm going with Carson Porter. I'm hoping they can open up that Byron Nelson defense, throw away from Leo Almanza and go the other way, and let's get some yardage. Keep me in it so my other guys can do it at the running back and receiver position. I think you probably have the advantage here, a quarterback, but maybe my other two positions I can come back a little bit. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping for. Let's see who you got at running back. You're going over to Newman Smith. You said we'd look at this again. Elijah Harrison. Talk to me about him.
Got 2 Newman Smith graphics in one day.
How about that?
What can
From
you say?
0 to 2, double down.
It's the black and gold graphics. The black and gold being Plano East. I was in my contract that all graphics have to be black and gold. It's just what we do. But Harrison ran for almost 300 yards this past week against Molina in a game that I think against North Mesquite. I think they're going to have to lean on the running game a little bit more. I think he's going to give me at least 2 bills, Ward. 2 bills.
2 bills. Bless it. Well, I'm looking for the same amount of my guy because I'm going to think Michael Henderson's going to shut down Khalid Lockett or at least have a nice little matchup. I'm going to go with Brendan Haygood from Sachse. I didn't want to say 2 bills. You just like me to
watch my own pain, don't you?
Exactly. I knew you were going to be at that one. I didn't want to say 2 bills. I wanted to say 150, but man, you said 400 and 200 for your guys. I'm expecting 3 bills out of Brendan Haygood. I hope he's watching this. You're going to have to really step it up, guy. Because I apparently and then if we look over at
receiver, Sachse hat ready to go for that.
Exactly.
One. Like,
I'm bringing it to get this thing going. And now I look over here at receiver and you're doubling down. This dude is doubling down on me. He's trying to double up the points. Every yard that Cates get, Johnson's get.
That's what we call strategy. This is my Richland game. I'm picking them right now. We're going to have a big game out of Richland. I mean, they've had a lot of big games, but I think Fossil Ridge is going to give them a chance to get a little bit of the air raid going on. And I think Xavier is going to have a big game. I think Drew's going to have a big game. 2-for-1 special, Ward. Every single time Xavier touches the ball, I'm getting double the points, double the fun.
All right. Well, we'll see. But I'm going for a receiver over Crowley because I know Crowley can't stand Diggs, and they're going to take care of Boswell because
Crowley.
They don't love you no more because you're always picking against them. Caleb Williams is going to go to Antavius Ellis over and over again. We're going to get him 160 yards. Your guys are going to be not as much as you say they are because they're going to shut them down the third quarter, and all of a sudden you'll be like, wait, put them back out there. Let them go. Nope. Meanwhile, Ellis is going to have to be out there one-on-one coverage, just doing his thing. Hopefully that gets me a win because I've now lost 2 in a row. I'm not a big fan of losing 2 in a row, but that's where we're at. We'll let you know next week. Another win for Diggs. I'm sure it's going to be that. But, hey, I got a little confidence in my guys. I know they're going to come through. And hopefully when I'm watching Haygood go for 50-yard runs left and right, it'll make me feel good as they shut down Khalid Lockett and let him run. But that's who we got for you. And that's it for this week, man. Talk to me about – you said where you're going to be on Thursday, right? You're going to be Plano East and Plano West?
Plano East and McKinney Boyd this Thursday. We're hoping for a better chance this week. There's a pun there. That's all I'm going to say about that. You can look it up. I'll explain it on the dump what that might mean. But I hope there's a better chance this week.
Okay. All right. There's some
Think
sort of
about
chance.
that.
No, I
Think
will
about
it. Better chance. Got you. All right. And you'll be at Sachse Wylie East with me on Friday.
Sachse and Wylie East on Friday. It's an important game because Plano East is now at the point where, one bad game. Rock Hill almost had that bad game against Plano West. But they found a way to win it. This is now Plano East coming off. They're going to have a day sooner because they're playing on Thursday. McKinney Boyd's coming off a bye, so they got quite a bit of an advantage here. So I know Boyd's going to have a little bit of gamesmanship when it comes to that. But I'm hoping my Panthers take care of business, and then we get our bye week before our final 4 weeks. So. That's why I'm a free agent next week, Ward.
Free agent. That's why he's going to be at Arlington Heights.
Going in my swimsuit anywhere you ask me to go.
He's heading to Farrington.
Can't afford my inside high school sports sweats.
He's heading to Farrington or Clark. I can't remember where the stadium is, but you'll see him next Thursday in Fort Worth. It'll be a heck of a travel for him, but he'll be there to see the Rough Riders in Yellow Jackets.
And we'll talk about it on this show.
We definitely will. That'll be a longer effort for sure if I have to write out the whole Fort Worth, Arlington Heights, get the carpal tunnel going. All right, Diggs, I appreciate it, buddy. We will talk to you again next week.
The Dub Salute.